5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is the Boulder Zone. Raw talk. Real issues. Basic truth. Edgy humor. Sage advice. Unique interviews. Here's your host, Marco Boulder.
Hello again, my fellow interwebbers. Welcome, and thanks for tuning back into the zone. On deck is our usual brand of no frills, unpolished, manly talk and jocularity, and no Stuart Smalley around here. Nope. But for a fee, I hear his tear-soaked pastel sofa and sensitive dialogue can be rented elsewhere if you are so inclined. Hey, got a great show for you. Running the controls and keeping it smooth and keeping me from fucking things up too bad is our producer extraordinaire, Mr. Paulie. How you doing, buddy?
Good. Hey, everybody. How are you?
Well, I'm pretty damn good. I'm looking forward to the show today. And speaking of, we're going to talk a little bit about rock and roll today. I've said before in prior podcasts that one of the things that I believe is paramount in gaining and maintaining traction in your manhood journey is breaking away and doing some manly things. For example, going to a rock concert. I recently attended the stadium tour, and there's nothing more perfect to raise our testosterone than seeing Mötley Crüe live. If metal's your thing, then do an Anthrax, do a Slayer. They will fit in quite nicely. Paulie, I know that you've been to many a concert, and
Oh, yeah.
we're going to be looking at some clips. We're going to do Poison. We're going to do Def Leppard, and we're going to obviously do Mötley Crüe, and I hope you folks enjoy those. But I know you've seen Poison before, right, Paulie?
Yeah, recently, actually. Not on this tour, but last year.
Mm-hmm. And what did you think when you watched their show, when you saw their show?
Honestly, the first thing that hit me was, why did the bass player completely disregard any wardrobe cues from the rest of the band? I mean, I'm not saying that all those guys got to dress like that, but when everybody else in your band is dressed up and putting it on, and you look like you just dropped your kids off at the school, it's just a contrast that I didn't really find pleasing. And I hate to say it. I hate to say that that's what struck me first, but that was it.
I really think no matter what kind of show you put on, you should dress the part. And even though they've changed, their wardrobe has changed. And we talked about that off the air from, where they looked back in the 80s, the whole glam thing and the chick thing and all of that, to now, I like them better now. I mean, what do you think about that transition they've made from the 80s to now, just on their appearance?
Appearance only. I think Bret Michaels has done a really good job of maturing. I think he still looks completely rock and roll. The, kind of femi glam thing is not popular anymore. And I'm kind of glad about that. I was sick of buying, hairspray. But that, and I thought that maybe CC didn't really transition to modern day quite enough, that hair and everything. But then again, CC also stuck with kind of the 80s rock and roll thing when it comes to the guitars, playing the flying V and everything. And if I remember right, Bobby had a bright green BC Rich Warlock in their big videos. I think it was Talk Dirty to Me, which was, a big one for them. To go from that to some wood grain looking Yamaha looking thing, when the guy on the other side of the stage is still rocking the 80s guitar and look. It wasn't just the wardrobe, it was his entire attitude, and even, like I said, even the instrument.
I don't know. It's I don't want to focus too
Well,
much on old Bobby, but
I don't either, but at the same time, I mean, if you look at Brett, he was wearing he was it's not like he spent a whole lot of time in wardrobe. He was wearing a t-shirt, a couple bandanas, and some blue jeans. But I mean, not I mean, they fit him well. He looked great like that. He was wearing some tight-fitting clothes, and he's, still is fit and looked good and everything. And when I saw them, Bobby was literally wearing a flannel shirt. That's literally what he wore on stage, was a flannel shirt.
yeah,
I mean,
Brett's look is what he wears every day. If you see him in interviews and out on the street and everything, he wears that concert tee, t-shirt, jeans, boots. That's kind of how he looks, bandana every fucking day. So
yeah,
he
but he's just rock and roll all the time.
that's my point. That's where I was getting. He's rock and roll all the time. So yeah, CC, his look, I kind of wonder about the cousin it thing. The hair, is
Yeah,
that part of the hat?
well,
What is that?
it looked like it was part of the hat, but I still give it to CC because he played his ass off. He put some effort in. He looked cool. Same with Brett, and Ricky Rocket is always Ricky Rocket. He's friggin' awesome. I met him um, downtown Nashville once, walked into a bar I was into, and I pointed to him and just went, Ricky Rocket, like that, because I knew who he was. Nobody else knew who he was. It was pretty funny. He got up and played. You would think, well, maybe you wouldn't think, but some people would probably think, because he's a drummer from Poison, he's probably more into his hair than into the music. But he got up and played and was groovy. Played a Rolling Stones song, the one that has the cowbell at the top, that's kind of off from the rest of it, that most drummers get wrong. He nailed it. He was
Yeah.
great.
Well, his reputation in the drummer circle is just, I mean, it's beyond reproach. Everybody has good things to say about him as a person and his playability, his talent, all of that. He's the guy that's 100% legit behind Brett Michaels. So,
Yeah.
so that's the fashion side of the show. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll see you next. No, so let's talk about their music real quick before we get into the clip. I thought for 40 years they sounded damn good. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, I did think they sounded really, really great. They, Brett was, I don't know if it was just due to him being not all of that capable as far as a range goes at the time or whatever, but however it worked out, he wrote vocal parts for himself that he can still do at his age just as well as he did back then. And I think that's amazing. That's a really good call. It really is.
One of the things that I noticed with him, and a lot of singers, well, basically all singers, you get 40 years down the line and the voice is gonna change. It just
Yeah.
inevitable. It's inevitable. But what he does in those more difficult parts, those difficult vocal parts, is he engages the crowd. He brings the crowd in.
Mhm.
Instead of carrying that note or whatever, he just gets with them. And that is, I think, the cornerstone of their show is how he engages an audience. Some would say it's a little over the top. Some would say, hey, I get the energy and I love it. What say you, buddy?
I don't think he's over the top at all. I mean, he seems so incredibly nice that it makes me wonder if he really is that nice. But I mean, there's a lot of social interaction with him out there recorded, and he seems to be just kind of cool all the time. I've never heard of anybody saying that Brett Michaels was a dick to them ever. I mean, ever, even anything close to that. So I think he probably is in that good of a mood and, up and ready to party like that. I thought he was just amazing, especially for as long as he's been doing this and his age. I mean, we're talking his age like he's 70, but although nowhere near that, he's certainly not 25 anymore. So, yeah, I thought he was great.
Well,
I really did.
he he lives that rock and roll lifestyle like we mentioned before. I mean, carries his look wherever he goes. But I got to tell you, he had that television show on for a while, and I can't remember the name of Tunnel of Love or House of Love or something like that. And while it was kind of corny, it's kind of the rock and roll precursor to The Bachelorette or something like that. I gotta tell you, as far as the image, the rock and roll image and sex, drugs, rock, that sort of thing, he had a show about fucking chicks, a bunch of them that he chose
Yeah.
from, and he'd fuck each one of them, and
Good for
then
him.
he'd decide which ones stayed and which ones
Yeah,
would
which one he was
go.
gonna fuck again.
Yeah. So
He's
while I
Yeah, he
didn't
wins.
like the show, buddy, that concept right there, I was like, okay, so you're getting close to GOAT category as far as image is concerned in my
Yeah.
book.
Well, like the show or not, dude wins at life. I mean, he's in a friggin' huge rock band that's been a huge rock band for most of my life. He's and I'm not that young. And, he's, I'm sure, having whatever sort of relations he wants to have with however many females he wants to. Hopefully it's just one and he's being a real man and uber faithful to her and she's happy and everything. But I don't know that. I will tell you, if I could regress to one more thing about that. When I saw Ricky just hanging out at a bar downtown Nashville, he had two beautiful women with him. Now, I got the vibe that one was his girlfriend or whatever, or wife, or I don't know his marital status, and the other one was just a friend. But what made him look so fucking cool was he had the two prettiest women on his arm, and they looked ecstatic to be there. They weren't like, beaten down. I got to hang with him because he's a rock star stuff. It was just kind of like, I don't know, it just made him look like he's doing his job. She's happy. He's happy. It's working out. It's not one of these, it was the opposite of an R. Kelly.
Did they seem genuine to you when you saw them? Do you think that those chicks were putting on an act, putting on a show, or do you think they were genuinely digging being there and having a good time?
There was nobody to put a show on for. I really think I was the only one in the bar that had any idea who he was.
Okay.
I
Well,
don't think any.
that speaks well to him then, don't you agree? I mean, if
Yeah.
he's
Oh,
got a couple
yeah.
of chicks there and they're loving to be with him and, nobody
Yes.
basically knows him,
Yeah. Everybody being happy is always the best situation, I
he's
think.
doing something right. And guys, this kind of folds into the show here. Look, if you it doesn't matter the relationship that you have. If it's one chick, two chicks, 12 chicks, you live in Utah, whatever, okay? As long as everybody is happy, you're doing your job as a man. So,
No,
kudos to him.
absolutely. If everybody in your relationship is happy and there's no dysfunction going on, nobody's feels trapped or abused in any way, I think you're definitely doing your job.
Yeah. So with that, let's go ahead and take a minute and watch this clip from Poison, and we'll talk
Okay.
about that real quick when we're done. That was Poison. And before we get into the performance, I gotta say, Paul, that hair that CC has looks pretty well maintained, if I say so myself.
I mean, if you're the Hulk, yeah.
If you're the Hulk.
If you're the
Okay.
Hulk and that is the texture of your hair, that's as good as it gets.
At least it's not green.
Luckily, he played his ass off. Luckily,
Yes.
that is. I mean, although it's the entertainment business, which the music business is part of. So
Oh,
playing is important, but it's not everything. It was probably more of a feather in the cap of the show when Brent went over to like observe his solo and he grabbed the back of his head. Did you see that?
yeah.
That was hilarious. That was great. And then that Brett thought that was funny, or at least acted like he did, was great because it kind of made them look like they're buds and they're hanging out, and this is fun for them too, which is making everybody else have more fun.
Yeah, it's a big change from the 80s when, there was the drugs and the booze and all that, and there was many episodes of those two not getting along and the breakup
Right.
and that sort of thing. So, obviously, they've matured in
Yeah.
how they interact with each other and their music and whatnot. But you're absolutely right. Let me go back to that point. There's a lot of artists, musicians, let's call them that, out there that really want to get up there and be the Ingves and play all those technical parts. And while that's respectable, the bottom line is the entertainment, the performance. That's what it's about. You nailed it perfectly. It's about butts in the chairs. And there are a lot of these kids now that, well, there's always been these kids, but I just see it more than ever that think that it's all about the music. Only the music matters.
Yeah. I think that the whole math rock movement has gotten out of hand. I mean, you listen to a lot of guys there's, hey, I wrote this song, and then I'll hear it, and it's, well, you wrote some really cool riffs, but that's it. I mean, that in itself is not a song. You've got to have, I mean, I think in order to have a good song, you primarily have to have a good singer. You've got to have some good vocals. And all of this math rock stuff, I like to call it, where they've just gone way too far and we're in different time signatures all the time and all this crazy stuff. Everybody trying to be Dream Theater. And then they forget that Dream Theater has LeBray up there singing his ass off and making it all make sense. So I think, and looking really cool doing it. And, there's probably somebody thinks that Petrucci looks cool with that weird ass beard thing he has. But I mean, it definitely still looks rock and roll. Not
Yeah.
Zach Wild rock and roll, but pretty rock and roll.
Yeah. That clip I actually took from my phone. I was fortunate enough to be that close out of 42,000 people. And when you're right there, basically catching the sweat, it's an all different experience. And I'm not gloating. I'm just thankful that I was able to get those tickets and actually meet some of the guys,
Yeah.
backstage. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. So as far as the performance, where would you put that from A to F, Paulie?
Oh man, I'm going to give him a solid B. And if Bobby had given a shit, I'd probably be giving him an A.
I can't disagree with that. I wouldn't even throw a B plus on that because I think that was part of it that just kept catching my eye. I think he was
Yeah.
a little corny on stage when it came to be his part, and I can't remember the song where he's got the bass, prominent bass piece in it, but he went and he sat on Ricky's riser and played it. And I'm like, that is incredibly geriatric to me to do that. in a Poison show. But then
In
other
a
times,
you're in Poison. Yeah, that's the thing. You're in Poison. I mean, another band, yeah, but maybe, but
yeah.
Waylon Jennings, maybe. But
But then other times he would just take off running down the fucking ego ramp, the ego stage, and down to the end and play something and run back. And it just felt like it looked like he was enjoying himself. I'll give him that. It looked like he was enjoying himself. He was up there. He was having a good time. He was interacting with the crowd. Of course, Brett kind of takes the front on that, but he was. But that's where I would give it a B as well, is probably his performance. Everything else, if it wasn't for that, yeah, I agree. A.
yeah, and I think if Brett and Cece both didn't, and Ricky, I mean, you can't really criticize any of their performances. They were really great. And like Cece's hair or not, the effort is there, and a lot of people liked it. So, yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. It's like, the opposite of it would be if I, played it on the Grand Ole Opry and decided to play a, electric pink flying V with black polka dots on it. It's not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just what people are going to focus on instead of what you want them to focus on. And I think we focused, it was the first thing we said. We couldn't help it. We focused on the problem.
Very good. Very good. Well, the next band we're going to take a look at is Def Leppard. And I think we'll just kind of jump into that. But I've got to tell you, this is the first time I've seen them live, and
Oh,
they were phenomenal. They just were so good. And the look, the performance, the music, the staging, everything was spot on. And Joe, for being 60 years old now, shit, is he older than that? I think he had his like 62nd birthday when he was on the road there. For being that age and having to hit the notes he had,
yeah.
damn good.
Yeah. He was not as kind to himself on writing vocal parts as Brett was.
No.
Because that stuff is not easy. I mean, most of the young guys I was in bands with back then couldn't do it. But incidentally, I did see the Hysteria tour.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I did. I own your free fare.
Oh, the up in Michigan, right?
Yes. And you know who opened for them? And they were just as good. They were both so cool. Europe.
Oh, good Lord. Now, you want to talk about a voice, Joey Tempest?
Still, his voice, he's still awesome. He still looks good and still sings his ass off.
Now, he got a bad rap back then from the rockers. Yeah, he was doing the whole glam thing, but I think he was shagging so much pussy, getting so much attention from the ladies. The guys maybe got their, dicks just jointed for a second, because he was a pretty boy. No doubt about it.
Absolutely.
For me, the vocals, just pure, just hit every note. His stage presence. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Pure,
we could do a thing on them.
yeah. Fucking bad ass. And the guitar player, they were just, all of their keyboard stuff. Well, this is not about them, but yeah, they were great.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and launch into this Def Leppard video, and we'll talk about the clip in a minute. Okay, Def Leppard. What the hell can you say bad about that right there, Paulie?
The background vocals. But, I mean, it was cute that they did it, though. I mean, when I saw them, they were all on tracks, and they sounded like the record, and they were great. And I've heard Joe Elliott, talking about how no, actually, it wasn't Joe Elliott. It was Phil Collin talking about how they're a singing band, there's no tracks, and this, that, and the other thing. But when you have Mutt Lange background vocals on your record, and, like, your record is kind of known for that, your huge background vocals and everything, and you have Vivian Campbell over there going photograph. I mean, it's just that was the only thing, because Joe Elliott killed it. They all looked good. Um, but yeah, I mean, you asked background vocals, the only thing.
Yeah, well, let's the good, bad, and the ugly. You know, it surprised me that Joe is singing so well and singing those hard parts still, and they're known as a back vocal band, a harmony band. That area was lacking. It seemed like that's I'm not saying that doing harmony back vocals is easy, but
No, it's so hard.
if Joe can keep up, guys,
Yeah. Well, I think you just need to, get off your high horse and run some tracks. Another thing I noticed when Joe was singing, he held out some long notes. There was no tuner slapping him on the right note. I really don't think he was tuned at all. I don't think, I mean,
you're
I don't
right.
think he was.
I didn't hear that at all. Obviously, the effects were there, but
Sure.
yeah,
Be
no
wrong if
tune.
they weren't.
That little melodyne thing that goes on.
Ah.
Yes. Something from Lost in Space or something,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just like,
Will Robinson.
right.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah. Yeah.
Joe was the highlight. I mean, you know, I don't know if you saw it there. And from my vantage point, I got to see some of the cool stuff that people in the back didn't see. But when the lights went down and he nailed that last long note, he did this. He went just like that.
Oh, that's
He nailed
awesome.
it. Nailed it.
He
Yeah,
knew
he
it.
loved it. He knew it. And you'd know it when you're up there and you do it.
Oh, hell
And
yeah.
I was like, not only did he nail it, but it's like after all these years, he still has that passion where it's like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
That is what keeps these bands where they're at and keeps people coming to see them because they still
Yes.
have that passion.
And effort all the way around on the way they looked. From what I could see from the short clip, I wasn't there, but it looked like everybody put some effort in and they looked good doing what they were doing. They, you know, they were a great rock band. They still are. They probably always will be. I mean, Joe still singing like that is really an accomplishment. I mean, I'm a little older, been in the music business for a long time, and I can tell you that as guys get older, that is hard to do. And what he's doing was hard to do when he was a young man in the mid 80s. So he has really focused on his mic technique and a few other things. Because even when he was hitting those high notes, it wasn't like before with the microphone out here screaming. He was a much more controlled, and even on the really high screamy notes, if you notice, he still had the microphone really close because he's obviously learned how to save his voice a little bit, still hit those notes, sound great doing it, and be able to do it tomorrow night as well, which is
Yeah,
awesome.
he has got obviously on speed dial whatever vocal coach or medical team he needs to maintain that voice. I mean, he's crazy
Yeah.
wealthy. So,
Yeah.
but I got a chance to go backstage and meet the guys. And I've got to tell you, they were all really good guys. I told Joe a joke, and halfway through it, he goes, "Oh, I've heard this one." And I was like, man, you want to talk about talking to Joe Elliott and saying a joke? And then he goes, "Oh, I know it." And it's like, "Ugh, fuck.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right.
You know? Okay, Joe. Well, I'm not going to say anything, dick. Oh,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I brought Blondie with me, and she is a huge Def Leppard fan,
Oh, really?
and oh boy, it's off the hook. We got that album signed and all of that sort of stuff, and she just was smitten with Rick Savage to the point where he said something to her, and she just pleasantly smiled. She didn't know what
Couldn't
to
even
do.
say anything.
And I said, "Hey, this is her kind of first time meeting an idol, as it were." And he turned to her and with a big smile, he goes, "Well, there's always a first time, right, darling?"
Is
And she
that what
was,
he said?
yes. And
Good
I
for
thought she was
him.
going to melt into a puddle. I was cracking
Aw,
up.
that's awesome.
But it goes to that point that, off stage, these guys have everything. They've achieved the pinnacle. And, dude like me, and they're going to take a second in a few minutes and talk to you. I was really impressed. Their stock went up substantially just getting a chance to talk to them and meet them that way.
That's awesome that you got to do that, man. I would have loved to have met those guys. I've been such well, you've known me most of my life. But, yeah, I have their box set, which has a 45 of the first demo they ever did, and it's got, like, the RCA Victor looking old, record player on it, and instead of a dog, it's got a leopard.
Ah,
It's kinda cool. It's hand-drawn thing. It's kinda cool with the guitar player before Phil Collen was in the band and all that stuff. I've never listened to it.
really?
I've never well, I mean, I listen to a lot of records, but I, don't really have the 45 thingy, so
Yeah. What is
eh
that little thing from back in the day? That little
yeah, 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 yeah.
spiral
Yeah,
looking thing, you put it in the
yeah,
middle and drop it on there. Yeah, that's old
yeah,
school there, buddy. One thing that I noticed as well is you mentioned Phil Collin. I noticed that he went to the wings a couple of times. And first time I didn't really look. And second time he did his part, and whether Joe was talking or something he wasn't instrumental in being a part of, he was actually speaking to someone with a camera. And I was like, what is he doing there? And then I found those Def Leppard behind the scenes, behind the tour. And that's what he was doing. On every stop, he would come off and he'd say something about his guitar, about the show. And it was just free flowing, happy, saying his part, and then going back right back on stage and jumping back in. And
yeah, man.
and you know this, when musicians do that, they're enjoying themselves. You
Yep.
know, what do you think?
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And, I don't think I've shared this with you, but I watched Phil's video where he was explaining his workout, all the shit he was doing out in his own garage, didn't even go to a gym. He's got some equipment there. And he was sharing his pre-tour workout routine and diet that he does specifically before he goes on tour so he looks good and is able to jump around and have a good time. I think that's really cool when somebody that's been in it that long isn't to the point of, yeah, just give me my guitar or whatever. I mean, they're still like, I'm going to have a workout routine and a specific diet just because I'm going out on the road and I want to rock it. And that's probably part of the reason why he rocked it so hard. And he's a really underrated guitar player, I think. I saw him on the metal show that Trunk had for a long time. Sometimes he'd have a guitar player over to the side just playing riffs when they go to commercial and come back and everything. And they had Phil Collin, and it was one of the best I'd ever seen. Dude's amazing.
Yeah, you touched on his physical routine there. He is in incredible shape for his age.
Oh, yeah.
He looks good. I mean, this guy is in his 60s as well, and he can go on stage without a shirt and look like he's 25 years old. I mean, that's a lot of respect for that. Much prop.
Yeah.
And the other one that does that as well is Rick Savage. He's
Yeah.
not as shirtless and that sort of thing, but he does it as well. They work out before the show. He's got an exercise routine, and that's important for you guys out there. I've talked to you about this before. If you want to raise your stakes, out there, be more marketable, you got to present a package that people want to buy, that these ladies, other people want to be interested in. Too many of you go out there with your tractor hats on and your big bushy beards and your plaid shirt like what I'm wearing. I digress a little bit. It's about staying healthy. Okay. You don't
Uh-huh.
have to go and pump iron all day long. Just get out there and walk. Watch what you eat, you know, lower the vices a little bit. And boy, we're not ones to talk about vices in our years, but we went through a few of those. Yeah. But we've learned, we've grown, we've gotten older, and we realize that you can't maintain that lifestyle for years and years and years, with the exception of Keith Richards. But he's I
Yeah.
think he's an alien. But so
Well,
yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah. The other person that comes to mind when I think of like just an older rock star that's nailing it physically and musically and in every way, it's Sting. And
mm.
The Police is Phil Collins' favorite band.
Oh,
So it
really?
is. So I wonder if he's, kind of taking a cue from the Stingster there because he's kind of doing the same thing and really nailing it. So
Well,
however he got the idea.
there's a little trivia right there. Something I learned something. There's a little trivia for you there.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, we're going to go ahead and jump into the final clip, and this is of Motley Crue, and we'll have lots to talk about on that.
Yeah.
Motley Crue. So, should we start with the big white elephant in the room?
Yeah, man. I don't understand why if he's going to sing out of tune. I get that. I mean, I get that your voice ages and singing those songs might be hard to do, but why so far out of time? Why can't I mean, it's like he wasn't even getting it in time. And to me, that just seems like I mean, you don't lose that, I wouldn't think, if you're with it enough to put those pants on and go on tour with those dudes. You're probably not so far along in age that you can't hear time anymore.
Yeah,
And maybe he's just always been like that. I don't know.
no. Well, this is actually the first time I've seen Motley Crue as well. But who hasn't seen 1,000 live videos of their concert? Their what is it, Carnival of Sins tour? I thought was their best. They all sounded great. They performed well and that sort of thing. Was not the same performer. And look, everybody's beaten Vince Neil to shit on his performance and how he sounds.
It's undefensible.
I just don't get it. Yeah, you can fill the stands because of your name, and there's a good show and light show and performance and all that. But how can you be so off on your vocals? Okay, missing notes. I get it, but
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, maybe even
Vince.
just sing a different note than that really high one, but still sing the song. I mean, to me, it really looked like somebody who didn't give a fuck how it sounded and didn't give a fuck about it ahead of time to get prepared or anything. I mean, if you're going to go out and do that, I mean, you're a singer, if you're going to go out and do that, he needed to do like Phil Collins is doing and go out there and maybe do some exercises and get your breathing up a little bit. So when you go out to do that, you aren't in the middle of gasping for air when you should be singing. So you can't even sing in time. I mean,
Absolutely. It takes preparation. I mean, for a major tour like that, most of those guys had things that they did to prepare for it. You have to, especially at that
yeah.
age. I think you're spot on by saying, I don't think he did shit to prepare for this at all. He
Well, if he did,
didn't
it
look
failed.
good. He didn't look good. He didn't perform well. His stage presence was shit. I mean,
Yeah.
when he first came out in that the gown or whatever, he looked like fucking Ric Flair. Oh my God. Okay, I see you're trying to mask it here, cover it up, but I hate to sit here and bag on him because he's a nice guy and he's been through so much
He's
shit,
been
Paul.
through so much. He's such a nice guy. Yeah, I mean, you watch The Dirt and you just really have a heart for the dude because that is some shit to go through. And I mean, anybody that, when anybody loses a family member, your heart goes out to them. But when it's a young child, and then also the whole, Razzle being killed because he was irresponsible behind the wheel, which, that's where the line gets crossed. People think that, the more rock and roll you are, the more of a dude you are. Well, when you're so fucking rock and roll that you're too stupid to think, hey, I've had 6, 7, 8 beers, maybe I shouldn't drive. That's not the mark of a man. He shouldn't have been doing that after, being the lead singer for Motley Crue. I don't know. I don't know. I'm talking out my ass as far as that goes because I've never been in that sort of situation. But man, there's a lot of
Yeah.
really sucks there.
Yeah. I think you're closer to the mark than what you realize. Yeah, much sympathy for what brought him to that place because obviously you lose your best friend at your hand. They die at your hand. That's going to fuck you up a little bit. Okay. I can imagine just getting over that and then losing your young child, young daughter. Jesus, if he was on the path to getting fucked up there, this is what would push you over, you know? I don't know how any of that happened. I'm not an insider with Motley Crue or anything like that. Hell, you're closer to that stuff now than I am. But there's something that he was reluctant to participate in, just engage in the front end of this tour because again, I
Well,
was disappointed. I actually felt sorry for him watching him up there.
I have had quite a bit of experience touring with country acts out of Nashville. And I got to say that the whole idea that one might prepare for a tour other than learning the songs is never considered because what are we going to do? We're just going to stand there in one place if we're going to go play country for some artist. Most likely. I mean, there's some new bro country things, but for the most part. And maybe the fact that Vince lives here, and I'm sure everybody, he's freaking Vince Neil, wants to be his friend. I'm sure he's hooked up with a lot of people in town, and this is what they do. They country artists for the most part drink and get fat, and that's just fine. But it's not okay. It's not okay when you're Vince fucking Neil, man, because that is a name. That is an icon. I think he is really maybe not quite an icon, but Motley Crue made a huge mark, and his voice is all over it. And the saddest thing about his performance to me is sometimes when he do his what's that thing that he does, it's like, wow, you sounded like Vince for a second there. Like the thing that you did that just made you sound like you, it's still there. You know what I mean? It feels like if he would condition himself a little bit more, like the fellows we talked about before, he might be in a better situation.
Hey, so let's move away from Vince for a second here and get on to the rest of the guys. I have to go directly to Nikki. We had talked before the show today about his image and how
Yeah,
he has progressed through the years to his presence now. Why don't you
yeah.
talk a little bit about that, Paulie?
Well, as we were saying a little earlier before the show, I think a lot of the people that were glammy kind of, which kind of meant that you dressed and did everything you could to look like a girl. I mean, really, it was makeup, long hair, spandex clothing, all of that stuff. I mean, we both did it. You were there. But
So how Aquanet, I think we should have bought stock in that.
extra super hold Aquanet, white
Pink
can with the pink
white
label.
can, pink
Pink
label.
label.
Yeah,
That's
I
right.
couldn't remember because sometimes, there were some influences there. If it was the pink can with a white label or a white can with a
It
pink
was a
label.
white can with a pink label, and we went through a lot of it. At the time, I had hair, and it was this high off my head.
You know what?
It was
I'll
pretty
go
cool.
ahead
Sorry about
and
that.
I'll pull it up and I'll throw it up so people can kind of see Polly with hair
Oh
back
my god,
then.
you have a picture?
I do. I've got one
Is it
of
one
a
I've seen?
I think so. It's one of a bar we played in Michigan, and it's you and me together, and the hair, the whole deal. So I'll pop
Yeah.
that up here. As a matter of fact, here, I've got it right here. I'll just pop it up right here. Check this out right there.
Nice.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah,
Nice.
we thanks. We
Good
digress.
times.
Good
Good
times.
times. Good times. I have to tell you, though, the thing that, I noticed most about that clip with Nikki was the look on his face. He just did not he looked like somebody standing up there with a singer that was completely blowing it and knowing that the singer was completely blowing it and that the whole band pretty much sounds like shit because of the singer. I
You
mean,
know, you're right. I think that affected Tommy as well because when I would look up there at Tommy, he didn't have the energy. And what is that song? It escapes me right now where he said, "Hey, Tommy, look out there." And he does
girls,
the
girls,
whistle thing.
girls.
Girls, girls,
Girls,
girls.
girls, girls. Yeah.
He engaged Tommy. Tommy didn't say a fucking thing. Didn't even do his part. It
I
was
think
like it was
yeah.
like I don't know if that had something to do with it, that he was feeling the same thing that you perceive Nikki to feel, but I saw Nikki actually looking square at him, waiting for him to say something or not say something. So I got the vibe, kind of having a little bit of inside track here, that there might have been some friction there.
Hey Tommy, check it out, man. Right here.
I mean, I can't imagine that there wouldn't be. I mean, musically, it was a catastrophe. I mean, even the mix between the 3 video clips we just watched, and I realized they were all recorded in the same fashion. The mix was even bad. I mean, I don't what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do when you have that to work with? You've got Tommy Lee phoning it in. You've got Mick Mars, who was a little bit older than them to start with, but looks a lot older than them now. Obviously, with his skeletal system issues that he's had forever and all that stuff. He's had a lot of serious illness, and it's probably pretty damn amazing he's up there at all. But it wasn't a stellar performance. The fact that he's there might be awesome, but the performance wasn't. So, I mean, I'm having a hard time finding a whole lot good about the band except for the way Nikki looked. I
Yeah,
mean,
Nikki's as they went on, that was kind of in the front end of the show. As they went on, it felt like they all kind of got into their groove. Vince, that's what you saw there's what occurred during the whole show. But when Nikki engaged the crowd and did his bit, and then uh, Tommy did his bit with a crowd, you can see that that's where they pull their energy from. And I didn't see the connectivity between Nikki and Tommy like I've seen in other live concert videos. They seem to interact with each other and cue off each other. Obviously, they're bass player and drummer. You should be. You should be like that, obviously. But they have always had kind of a thing going on. And I didn't see a lot of that at this concert. So if anything, and I'll put a question mark here, this may be it for them.
I think it needs to be it for them unless they're willing to, pull a big old Journey and get another singer that sounds just like him. And there's lots of them out there. I'm sure there's a Motley Crue tribute band with a singer that looks like Vince used to and sounds like Vince used to. And I'm sorry, nothing. I don't want to see Vince lose his gig, but a couple weeks ago I saw his interview with Sammy Hagar, and Sammy was at his house and everything. And judging by what I saw there, Vince is just fine. He's not going to starve if he doesn't do another tour. And he should do the musical community a favor and say, look, I can't sing anymore like that. I can't do those songs anymore. If you need proof, I've got some concert footage. He should say, hey, why don't you guys get somebody that can still do this with my blessings? Go get somebody that can still do this. And if the fans all knew that it was with his blessing and all that stuff, because you got to admit, if he had sang his ass off, the rest of them would have played better. The whole vibe of the whole thing, when the look on Nikki's face and everything was like, oh fuck, this is horrible. This is terrible. I mean, that's what it looked like he was saying, And I've seen all the concert footage from back in the day, and when he was playing his BC Rich Warlock. But now he's still playing a really cool bass. He didn't go to the Yamaha BB 3000 wood grain thing, but it's which is a great bass, but it doesn't look cool.
Yeah, I
And
really like my bass, Paulie.
yeah, I know you have one just like Nikki's, man.
I
And
love
they're
it.
really nice. I mean, it's yours is left-handed, but and nothing. And
I'm
there's
left
nothing.
brained. I don't know.
There's nothing wrong with being left-handed, Mark. There's nothing wrong with it. As long as you believe there's nothing wrong with it, there's nothing wrong with it.
Well, I
No,
don't
it's
believe there's
okay.
anything wrong with it.
Keep
Hey,
thinking that way.
hey,
Just
nobody
keep it
fucks
up.
nobody fucks with my shit.
Or
Nobody
Biden.
fucks with my shit.
Sorry. You heard about the nobody fucks with a Biden thing, right?
No, God, no.
Our
Let's not go there.
president actually just said that over a microphone and everybody heard it. Nobody fucks with a Biden. We're not giving any political leanings or any idea of what our political leanings are here, right? Not at all.
Yeah, that's not what we're about. But that was a funny clip. I saw that. It kind of makes you think, like, okay. Anyway.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I whatever. It seemed like an odd thing to say, but yeah.
You talked about Mick Mars, and I'll tell you, he hasn't lost a stroke in those hands.
Oh, yeah,
He is
this sounded
not
good.
moved. Oh, geez, he was just tearing it up. His solo
Good
was
for
great.
him.
I wish I had a clip, but and that's going to be sad because he is probably done. I can't imagine him going forward with the band anymore
Yeah, I mean,
because he was pretty rigor mortis up there. But
how
those
many years
hands,
have we been? Yeah, but how many years have we been hearing that he's done?
it's his passion. It's like any other musician that's been doing that all their life. It's hard to cut that umbilical cord.
Yeah.
He has the success, he has the money. I mean, he collaborates, he writes, he does all those sort of things, but there's something about, as you know, being on that stage that is just electrifying. When you put it out there and it comes back, there can't, I mean, you can tie it to probably really mind-blowing sex with two other people. I mean, I can't tie it to much other things than that.
Well, all right then. Two of the people in that band, or just any two people, or
Hey, no judgment here.
right? Yeah,
In the
right.
band, outside the band. We're
That's
not
all
about
good.
that here. It's
That's all good. We'll have
good.
sex
Is
with
everybody
fucking
happy?
anybody.
Yeah.
We'll fuck anybody if it makes them happy. How's that?
Yeah. We'll fuck for food. Yeah. Anyway.
Right. Yeah.
No, Mick, he I was
From
impressed.
"We'll fuck for food" to Mick. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to keep us on course here, you know? You keep things functioning in the backside. I try to keep it functioning in the front side, but it doesn't always work out that way. And that's what I love about the show. I hope that's what you guys like about the show too. We just kind of go with things. So back to Mick, please. Back to
All right,
Mick.
fine. Fine, we're
The appearance, yeah, he does not look healthy, and obviously he's not. But he's that guy that can make up for it in his musicianship. And I know we talked earlier about, hey, it's about the performance and that sort of thing. But I think my opinion is he's kind of earned his place, and
Oh,
people
absolutely.
expect this from him because of his physical situation. So
Yeah.
we now focus on his playing. And I think that should have been the case many, many decades ago, because I don't think he got the credit that he deserved. But now I think people are kind of looking at that and seeing how talented he really is. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I feel like anybody that's gonna go up on stage, any effort you put into your image is going to show through and you'll be rewarded for it. Effort to not be fat. I'm sorry you're in a rock band. I'm not discriminating against fat people. I'm just saying you're in Motley Crue, especially if you're the lead singer, speaking of it. Come on. I sorry, but you can say, oh, hormones and whatever, thyroid, this, that, and the other thing. We all know it comes down to how many calories you put in the hole in the front of your fucking face. And he could do something about that. Mick is in shape as a guy in his situation could ever be. He definitely put some effort into the way he dresses. He started the beret thing quite a while ago, and that works for him. I think it's kind of, I mean, when I think of him, I think of him wearing a beret. He's kind of made that part of his signature look, which is always good. I mean, he obviously spent some time looking as cool as he possibly could, playing a really cool guitar, that pinkish colored Strat he's been playing for a while. Kind of, you think of him with that. It's cool.
That thing's
I
beat the fuck too. Have you
Yeah,
seen it?
and it looks fucking great. It looks very rock and roll. I really liked it. So I think that man, can't say enough good things about him. I wish that he was in better health because he probably he deserves it. Obviously, he would, enhance it and still be rocking out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, all in all, I got to tell you, we didn't say this about Def Leppard, but let's go back and talk about that just for a second. A to F. Where would you put the show based on what you saw on that clip?
Just Def Leppard.
Just Def Leppard.
I'm going to give him a B plus because the only thing I didn't dig was the bad background vocals mixed badly. They were really loud. Photograph was as loud as Joe. You know what I mean? So I'm going to give them a B plus because that was a huge musical faux pas. They should have just had tracks and turned those jokers down because they may have been singing. They might be a singing band as they say they are, but if it's not good, if it doesn't sound like your record and your record is Mutt Lang doing it like 4,000 times, you're not going to make that happen even close to it with three guys on stage. Just don't do that. So but other than that, like all the stuff we said about Joe, he's just amazing. All of them. For God's sakes, Vivian Campbell, who's played on a million records that we all know and love, and his solo-ish thing that came out called Last in Line is pretty damn good. I had that on vinyl. I still do. It's really good.
Okay, so jumping back to Motley Crue, let's go ahead and from A to F there, Paulie. What would you give that show, their total performance?
Man, I hate to be just on both ends of the spectrum, but I can't see any reason why they would get above, a D at best. And I'm only doing that to be nice, honestly, because I can't think of one redeeming thing except for that Nikki looked cool.
Yeah.
Really, there's not anything It's not, I mean, Nikki, look, I guess Mick was okay too. Maybe that helps him to get a D instead of an E or F, but I'm still going to give the overall thing a D. Is that too rough?
No, you know what? You're speaking your opinion, and we're good with that here. Now, are people gonna probably comment on the bottom of our show here and say you guys are a bunch of, assholes and you should be more kind and all that? Yeah, probably. But you know
Yeah.
what?
What have you done?
Well, I'm gonna be like, okay, that's your opinion. Fuck off.
Yeah.
Thanks for the
Yeah.
contribution, but that's
Yeah.
that. If you've been there before, you kind of know what you're talking about. It's okay to have it, even if you don't. Just don't sit there and sound like you're a fucking authority. If you haven't experienced it a little bit somewhere, whether it's production or if it's performing or whatever, there's a lot more to it that I don't that most people don't realize. That hour and a half up there on stage is just that much of it all.
That's
And
not what you're
so,
getting paid for when you're on tour. I can tell you that. The hour on stage is not what you're getting paid for. It's the 23 hours of riding on a bus down the highway with a pack of assholes, most likely a couple of them you don't even like, and then let's all drink as much beer as we can. That's healthy. That really makes for a good day. Day drinking on a bus with a bunch of people you don't really care for. So I guess I would say, um, having done it a little bit, I have a little bit of sympathy for him, but not a lot. It's not that big of a deal.
yeah, I think I'd be a little more kind since I was there, and I would probably give them a C minus. I'm teetering between a D plus and a C minus, just for the fact that they're Motley fucking
That's the only
crew.
reason they didn't get an E or
And
F from me. I'm telling you, they're Motley fucking crew, and there's something to be said there. So I'm with you there.
Paulie, is there anything you want to say to folks before we head out?
Well, I want to comment on what you said. I happen to know somewhat of a rock star that we could probably interview at some point. So
Well, yeah, we've talked about that, buddy, and let's not give that up yet.
I'm
I
not
think we've
not
got to.
giving it up. Not giving it up.
Okay,
Just saying,
okay.
it's going to be special. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, so tune in because there's not a lot of little shows like this that's able to bring in an A-lister. Hint, hint,
Yeah.
hint. So
If you miss the next one, you're going to be the one that doesn't know what everybody else is talking about at work the next day.
there
It's
it
going to be
is,
that
right
big.
there. Yeah. So with that, you can contact us and check out the Boulder Zone in all the usual places: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and like I said before, I appreciate your patience in give me a little time to spin those things up. I'm not a big social media guy, but it's important. It's a connection point with you guys. We do like to get information out on those mediums, and we're going to be doing that, and we're starting to do that now. Also, check out the website boulderzone.com. Make sure you check that out. And before you guys head out, I want to thank you for tuning in. Do us a favor, mash that subscribe button, punch that like button. That gets us out, as you guys know, to more people. And maybe you're helping us help somebody else get their questions about relationships and manhood and that sort of thing answered. So, with that, let's hear from you. Let's hear from you. This show is all about you. Yeah, we're kind of deviated today and talked about music. I've got other people that come on the show that we do fun interviews with, but we try to narrow it down to the same thing. We try to tie it into manhood, try to tie it into relationships a little bit. We're not the authorities. I'm going to tell you that right now. There are guys out there that give great information, just great broad stroke information. Love watching those guys. But where we're different is you can contact us with your problem, with your question specific to you, and we'll take it. We'll take that call on video, we'll take it on phone, we'll take it on chat, we'll take it on message, wherever you want, however you want to get it to us, we'll take it. And I'll tell you, if it's engaging enough, I might just give you a call and bring you on the show. I think we'll have a lot of fun with that. So make sure you contact us. I'll give you the information straight out of the Manhood Operator Manual 101, and we look forward to hearing from you. So with that, until next time.
You know what you need to do. Get bolder.